Alone in the sewers. If they see you, don't even blink. The air was thick with the stench of rot and damp concrete, a smell that clung to my clothes and burrowed into my skin. I was alone, or so I thought, standing at the mouth of the old sewer tunnel beneath the city of Haverford. The flashlight in my hand flickered, its beam slicing through the darkness, but revealing only slimy walls and a shallow stream of murky water snaking through the tunnel's floor. My heart pounded, not from the cold or the isolation, but from the nagging certainty that something was wrong, terribly wrong. I'd been down here for urban exploration before, mapping forgotten places for my blog, but this time felt different. The silence wasn't empty. It was alive, watching me. My name's Ethan Carver, and I'm 27, a freelance photographer and self-proclaimed urban archaeologist. I've spent years crawling through abandoned buildings, old subway stations, and derelict factories, chasing the thrill of uncovering secrets the world forgot. Haverford, a decaying industrial town in upstate New York, was my latest obsession. Its labyrinth of sewers, built in the 1800s and expanded haphazardly over decades, was a treasure trove of history and danger. Most of the tunnels were collapsed or flooded, but rumors persisted about deeper, hidden sections, sealed off for reasons no one could explain. Locals whispered about disappearances, strange noises, and things seen in the dark. I dismissed it as folklore, the kind of stories people tell to scare kids. But now, standing here, I wasn't so sure. It started with a tip from an old contact, a retired city engineer named Carl. Over coffee at a greasy diner, he slid a yellowed map across the table, its edges frayed and stained. "This ain't on any official record," he said, his voice low. "Shows a branch of the sewer system they buried in the 50s. No one's been down there in decades." His hands shook as he pointed to a section marked with a faint red X. "Stay away from that part, Ethan. I mean it." When I pressed him for details, he clammed up, muttering something about things that don't belong. I thought he was being dramatic, maybe senile, but the map was real and I couldn't resist. 2 days later, I was gearing up at the edge of town, near an overgrown lot where a rusted grate led into the sewers. My backpack held the essentials: flashlight, spare batteries, rope, a GoPro for footage, and a notebook for sketches. I told no one where I was going, not out of secrecy, but because I didn't have anyone to tell. My parents were gone and my friends had drifted away, tired of my obsession with places better left alone. Maybe that's why I kept doing it. The ruins didn't judge me. They just existed, same as me. The grate screeched as I pried it open, the sound echoing into the void below. I descended the iron ladder, each rung slick with moss, until my boots splashed into the ankle-deep water. The tunnel stretched ahead, a yawning throat of brick and shadow. My flashlight beam danced across the walls, catching faded graffiti and rusted pipes. The air was colder than I'd expected, and my breath fogged in front of me. I checked my map, orienting myself. The red X was deep in the system, past a junction a mile in. I'd follow the main tunnel, take a left at the split, and keep going until I found it. Simple enough. At first, it was routine. The slosh of water under my boots, the drip of condensation from the ceiling, the occasional scuttle of a rat. It was familiar, almost comforting. I filmed as I went, narrating softly for my blog. "Day 1 in Haverford's underbelly," I said, panning the GoPro across a collapsed section of wall. "This place is a time capsule. You can almost feel the history." But as I ventured deeper, the tunnel changed. The graffiti vanished, replaced by smooth, unmarked stone. The water grew still, like a black mirror reflecting my light. And the sounds, they stopped. No drips, no rats, no echo of my own footsteps, just a heavy, oppressive quiet. I checked my watch, 8:47 p.m. I'd been down here for 2 hours. The junction should have been close, but the tunnel kept stretching, unbroken. I glanced at the map, frowning. Had I missed a turn? The paper felt damp in my hands, the ink smudging under my thumb. The red X seemed darker now, almost pulsing. I shook my head, chalking it up to fatigue. "Keep moving," I muttered, forcing myself forward. That's when I saw it. Ahead, the tunnel widened into a chamber, its walls carved with strange, spiraling patterns. They weren't random, too precise, too deliberate, like something you'd see in an ancient temple. My flashlight caught glints of something embedded in the stone, shards of glass, maybe, or crystal, winking back at me. The air here was colder, sharp enough to sting my lungs. I stepped inside, my boots crunching on something brittle. I aimed my light down and froze. The floor was littered with bones, small, delicate, like those of birds or rodents, but arranged in neat, concentric circles. Someone or something had placed them there. My pulse raced, but I couldn't look away. I knelt, filming the bones, my hands shaking. This isn't natural," I whispered to the GoPro. "Who the hell would do this?" The patterns on the walls seemed to shift in the corner of my eye, but when I turned, they were still. A trick of the light, I told myself. But the unease was growing, a primal instinct screaming at me to leave. I stood, ready to backtrack, when I heard it, a faint, wet sound like bare feet slapping against stone. It came from deeper in the chamber, beyond the reach of my light. "Hello?" I called, my voice cracking. No answer, just the echo of my own words. The sound came again, closer now, deliberate. I swung my flashlight, its beam cutting through the dark, but there was nothing, just shadows. My mouth went dry. I backed toward the tunnel, keeping the light trained on the chamber. The slapping stopped, replaced by something worse, a low, rasping breath, like air being drawn through a clogged pipe. It wasn't human. It couldn't be. I turned to run, but my foot caught on something, a bone maybe, and I stumbled, dropping the flashlight. It clattered against the floor, the beam spinning wildly before settling on the wall. In that split second, I saw it. A figure, tall and impossibly thin, standing at the edge of the chamber. Its limbs were too long, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. It didn't move, didn't blink, just stared with eyes that gleamed like the crystals in the walls. I scrambled to my feet, grabbing the flashlight, and bolted back into the tunnel. I ran blindly, the slosh of water deafening in my ears. My GoPro bounced against my chest, still recording. The tunnel seemed to twist, the walls closing in, but I didn't stop. The rasping breath followed, faint but relentless, always just behind me. I don't know how long I ran, minutes, maybe hours, until I collapsed against a wall, gasping. The sound was gone. The silence returned, heavier than before. I checked my map, but it was useless now, the ink smeared beyond recognition. My flashlight flickered, its battery dying. I was lost, deep in a place I didn't understand, with something that wasn't human hunting me. And then I remembered Carl's warning, "If they see you, don't even blink." I didn't know what they were, but I knew one thing for sure. They'd seen me. My chest heaved as I leaned against the damp sewer wall, the cold seeping through my jacket. The flashlight in my hand was barely clinging to life, its beam now a sickly yellow that flickered with every breath I took. The tunnel stretched endlessly in both directions, a black void that seemed to swallow sound and reason. My GoPro, still strapped to my chest, hummed faintly, its red recording light a small comfort in the dark. I didn't dare check the footage. Not yet. The memory of that thing in the chamber, its two long limbs, its unblinking eyes, was burned into my mind, and I wasn't ready to face it again. I forced myself to move, one hand trailing along the slimy brick to keep my bearings. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the occasional drip of water or the faint crunch of my boots on unseen debris. Every step felt like a gamble, like I was daring whatever was down here to find me again. Carl's warning echoed in my head, "If they see you, don't even blink." What did that even mean? Don't blink. Was it literal or some cryptic metaphor? My eyes stung from the damp air, and the urge to rub them was overwhelming, but I kept them wide open, scanning the darkness. I don't know how long I walked. Time felt warped, like the tunnels were bending it along with the walls. My map was useless, a sodden mess in my pocket, and the junction I'd been aiming for was nowhere in sight. The sewer system wasn't supposed to be this vast. Haverford was a small town, its infrastructure outdated and underfunded. Yet here I was, lost in a maze that felt impossibly ancient, like it predated the town itself. The walls were different now, older, their bricks replaced by smooth, almost polished stone. The carvings I'd seen in the chamber appeared again, faint at first but growing more intricate the deeper I went. Spirals, jagged lines, and symbols I couldn't decipher, etched with a precision that made my skin crawl. I stopped to catch my breath, my flashlight flickering again. "Come on," I muttered, smacking it against my palm. The beam steadied, revealing a fork in the tunnel ahead. Two paths diverged, one sloping downward into deeper darkness, the other curving to the right, where a faint draft carried the smell of mold. I hesitated, my gut telling me neither was safe. But standing still wasn't an option. That thing, whatever it was, knew I was here. I could feel its presence like a weight pressing against my back. I chose the right path, hoping the draft meant an exit was near. The tunnel narrowed, forcing me to duck under low-hanging pipes. The air grew colder, and the carvings on the walls became more pronounced, their edges sharp enough to cut if I brushed against them. My flashlight caught glints of those strange crystals again, embedded in the stone like stars in a night sky. They pulsed faintly, or maybe that was my imagination, my mind fraying under the strain. I kept moving faster now, my boots splashing through shallow water. The sound was too loud, too reckless, but I couldn't stop. Panic was setting in, a clawing fear that I was being herded, not escaping. Then I heard it again, the wet slap of bare feet on stone. It was distant but unmistakable, coming from the tunnel behind me. My heart lurched and I froze, pressing myself against the wall. The flashlight trembled in my hand, its beam darting across the tunnel. Nothing, just shadows. But the sound came again, closer, deliberate, like a predator pacing just out of sight. I remembered Carl's words and forced myself to stare into the darkness, my eyes burning as I fought the urge to blink. The slapping stopped, replaced by that rasping breath, slow and rhythmic, like it was savoring the air. I backed away slowly, keeping my eyes fixed on the tunnel's mouth. The shadows seemed to shift, not with my light but independently, coiling like smoke. My foot hit something soft and I glanced down. Mistake. A pile of bones, larger than the ones in the chamber, lay scattered across the floor. Some were animal, others. I didn't want to think about it. They were arranged in a spiral just like before, but this time there was something else. A shred of fabric, torn and stained, caught among the bones. It looked like part of a jacket, not unlike mine. My stomach churned and I tore my eyes away, forcing them back to the darkness. The rasping was louder now, closer, and I could feel it, eyes on me, unblinking, unyielding. I turned and ran, the flashlight bouncing in my hand, its beam barely cutting through the gloom. The tunnel twisted, narrowing further, until I was squeezing through a gap barely wide enough for my shoulders. The walls pressed against me, the carvings scraping my arms, and for a moment, I thought I was stuck. I thrashed, panic overtaking reason, and stumbled into a wider space. It was another chamber, larger than the first, its ceiling lost in shadow. The walls were covered in those same carvings, but now they glowed faintly, the crystals pulsing in sync with my racing heartbeat. In the center of the room stood a structure, a crude altar maybe, built from stacked stones and more bones. At its base was a pool of liquid, black and viscous, reflecting my flashlight like a dark mirror. I didn't want to go closer, but my legs moved anyway, drawn by some morbid curiosity. The air here was thick, almost suffocating, and the smell wasn't just rot anymore. It was something sharper, metallic like blood. I circled the altar, my flashlight shaking. The bones were human, no question. Skulls, femurs, rib cages arranged with care, some still clinging to scraps of flesh. My GoPro caught it all, its lens unblinking even as my own eyes screamed for relief. I whispered to the camera, my voice barely audible. This isn't right. This isn't just some forgotten sewer. Something's been here, something's still here. The words felt hollow, like I was trying to convince myself I wasn't losing it. Then I saw the markings on the altar, words, not symbols, carved in a language I didn't recognize but felt wrong, like they weren't meant for human eyes. I traced them with my finger and the air shifted, growing heavier. The rasping breath returned, not from behind me but from above. I jerked my flashlight upward and my blood ran cold. Clinging to the ceiling, its limbs bent at impossible angles, was the thing from the first chamber. Its body was gaunt, its skin gray and taut, like it had been stretched over bones too sharp to be human. Its eyes, huge, glassy, unblinking, locked onto mine. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. Its head tilted, slow and deliberate, like it was studying me. The crystals in the walls pulsed faster, their light casting shadows that danced across its face. It didn't make a sound, but I felt its presence in my mind, a pressure that wasn't words but intent. Stay. Watch. Join. My vision blurred, tears welling up, but I forced my eyes to stay open. If I blinked, I was done. I knew it. The thing moved, not toward me but sideways, scuttling across the ceiling like an insect. It vanished into the shadows and the rasping faded. I stumbled back, my legs weak, and hit the altar. The pool of liquid rippled, and for a moment I swore I saw faces in it. Human faces, screaming, their mouths open in silent agony. I turned and ran, not caring where, just away from that place, that thing, those eyes. The tunnel swallowed me again, and I kept running, the flashlight dying in my hand. The dark was closing in, and so were they. I could feel them now, more than one, their presence like a noose tightening around my neck. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew one thing. If I stopped, if I blinked, I'd never leave these sewers alive. The tunnel seemed to pulse around me, the walls breathing with a rhythm that matched the pounding in my chest. My flashlight was dead now, its last flicker swallowed by the darkness as I stumbled forward, guided only by the faint glow of those cursed crystals embedded in the stone. Their light was sickly, a pale blue that didn't illuminate so much as taunt, casting just enough shadow to keep me disoriented. My GoPro was still recording, its battery somehow holding out, but I didn't dare stop to check it. Every second I spent in these sewers felt like a countdown, and I was running out of time. My name is Ethan Carver, and I was starting to think I'd never see the surface again. The air was heavier now, thick with that metallic, blood-like stench that made my stomach churn. My eyes burned, raw from refusing to blink, but I couldn't shake Carl's warning. If they see you, don't even blink. It wasn't just a figure of speech. I'd seen what happened when those things locked eyes with you. Their gaze wasn't just unsettling. It was invasive, like they were peeling back your skin to see what made you tick. I'd seen one twice now, and I could feel others, their presence slithering through the dark like a current. The tunnel sloped downward, the floor slick with something thicker than water. I didn't look too closely, couldn't afford to. My boots slid with every step, and more than once I caught myself on the wall, my fingers brushing those carvings again. They were everywhere now, covering every inch of stone, their spirals and jagged lines seeming to writhe under my touch. I swore they were warmer than the walls, like they were alive, feeding off something. Maybe me. I don't know how long I'd been running when I stumbled into another chamber. This one was different, vaster, its ceiling so high my eyes couldn't find it in the dark. The crystals here glowed brighter, their light pulsing in a slow, hypnotic rhythm. In the center of the room was a pit, its edges jagged and uneven, like something had clawed its way out. The smell was overpowering, a mix of decay and something sharper, almost chemical. I edged closer, my heart screaming at me to turn back, but I needed to know. If this was the heart of whatever hell I'd wandered into, maybe it held answers, or a way out. The pit was deep, its bottom lost in shadow, but the walls were lined with more bones, human and otherwise, cemented into the stone like trophies. Some were fresh, their surfaces glistening with something wet. I gagged, covering my mouth, but the smell was in my lungs now, inescapable. My GoPro caught it all, its lens unblinking even as my own eyes screamed for relief. I whispered to it, my voice hoarse. This is a graveyard, or a shrine. I don't know, but it's not right. None of this is right. That's when I heard it, a chorus of rasping breaths, not from one direction but all around me. I spun my back to the pit, searching the darkness. The crystals pulsed faster, their light strobing now, and in each flash I saw them. Dozens of them. Tall, gaunt, their limbs bent like broken branches, clinging to the walls and ceiling. Their eyes gleamed, unblinking, fixed on me. They didn't move, didn't make a sound beyond that awful breathing, but I could feel their intent. They weren't just watching, they were waiting. I backed away, my heel brushing the edge of the pit. The air shifted and the rasping grew louder, synchronized like a chant. My vision blurred, tears streaming down my face, but I didn't blink. I couldn't. One of them moved, a twitch, barely perceptible, its head tilting as if testing me. I froze, my breath hitching, every muscle screaming to run but knowing it would be the end. Carl's words burned in my mind and I understood now. Blinking wasn't just closing your eyes. It was breaking contact, giving them an opening. They didn't just see you, they claimed you. I don't know how long I stood there, locked in that silent standoff. Seconds, minutes, hours. It didn't matter. Time was theirs, not mine. The crystals pulsed, and with each flash the figures seemed closer, their limbs stretching impossibly long. My legs shook, my body begging to collapse, but I held my ground. And then from the pit behind me came a new sound, a low, guttural hum, like a machine waking up. The figures froze, their heads snapping toward the pit in unison. The hum grew louder, vibrating through the stone, and I felt it in my bones, a pressure that made my ears pop. I didn't think, I ran. The tunnel I chose was narrow, barely wide enough for me to squeeze through. The carvings tore at my clothes, my skin, but I didn't care. The hum followed, growing louder, and with it came the slapping of feet, dozens, maybe hundreds, a stampede of those things behind me. I didn't look back. I couldn't. My eyes were locked forward, burning, tearing, but open. The tunnel twisted, split, twisted again, but I kept running, my breath ragged, my lungs screaming. The crystals were everywhere now, their light guiding me even as it mocked me, like they were part of the trap. I don't know how I found it, a rusted ladder, bolted to the wall, leading up to a grate, the surface, freedom. I scrambled up, my hands slipping on the slick metal, my backpack catching on the rungs. The hum was deafening now, shaking the walls, and the slapping was so close I could feel their breath on my neck. I reached the grate and pushed, my shoulders screaming with the effort. It wouldn't budge. I pounded on it, screaming, my voice lost in the hum. "Help! Somebody, please!" The grate gave way and I tumbled out into the night, landing in a patch of weeds. The air was cold, clean, and I gulped it down, my chest heaving. I scrambled to my feet, slamming the grate shut behind me. The hum stopped, the slapping stopped, and the silence was worse. I stood there, staring at the grate, waiting for something to burst through. Nothing did. The night was still, the stars above indifferent. I don't know how long I sat there, my back against a tree, my GoPro still recording. My eyes were raw, my body shaking, but I was alive. I checked my watch, 3:12 a.m. I'd been down there for hours, maybe longer. The lot was empty, the town asleep, but I could still feel them, their eyes lingering just beyond the grate. I didn't dare look at the footage, not yet. I needed to get away to process, to understand what I'd seen. But as I stumbled toward my car, something nagged at me. The map, the carvings, the bones, they weren't random. They were part of something bigger, something ancient, something that had been here long before Haverford. And those things, they weren't just monsters. They were guardians or worshippers or something worse. The pit, the hum, the faces in the liquid, it was all connected and I'd only scratched the surface. I drove back to my motel, my hands shaking on the wheel. I locked the door, drew the curtains and sat on the bed, the GoPro in my lap. I didn't want to watch the footage, but I had to. I needed proof, something to show the world, or maybe just to convince myself I wasn't insane. I plugged it into my laptop, my finger hovering over the play button. My eyes still burned, but I hadn't blinked since the chamber. I wasn't sure I ever would again. The video started and I watched myself descend into the sewer, my voice narrating, oblivious to what was coming. But as it played, something was wrong. The footage was grainy, distorted, and in the shadows I saw them, faint, flickering shapes always just out of frame. They'd been there the whole time, watching, waiting. And at the end, in the final frame before I climbed out, the camera caught something in the great shadow. A face, not human, its eyes wide and unblinking, staring straight at me. I closed the laptop, my heart pounding. They'd seen me. They were still seeing me. And deep down, I knew this wasn't over, not by a long shot.